Hello, this is Mad Cat, and welcome to another edition of Boobs and Dicks Smash the Matriarchy. Yes, we are aware of the echo, so just a little technical difficulties. It's been over a year since the last time we've done this, so there's going to be a few kinks in the system. Anyways, I am Dix.
I'm Boobs. Welcome back.
It's not showing you automatically. That's weird.
Wait, what?
Oh, there we go. Alrighty, so we have an interesting show today because we're going to be talking about the issue of sex education, and more specifically about this new thing out of California about the mandatory LGBT sexual education. But before we get to that, and also there was yesterday the national sit out for sexual education where parents pulled their children out of school for a day and protested the teaching of sex ed, and it was across the nation.
Wait, protesting like against sex ed?
Right.
Really?
It
That's
actually started in North Carolina too.
wow. I'm surprised I didn't hear about that.
Me too. But anyways, before we talk about this, in I want to add my opinion to this about sex education in general before we go into how bad California is doing it. And this will be a controversial opinion, but I do think that sex education should be mandatory, that it should be taught in schools. And that kind of makes me a hypocrite because I'm against what California is doing, but once we read through that article, you'll see why I'm against it. But the reason I'm for it, the teaching of it, is because we live in a society where so many people are having sex and they know very little about it, or at least little about the consequences, especially teenagers. And then they end up getting themselves into a situation that basically ruins their lives. Now, of course, pregnancy is the most common thing, and abortion is an option. But what I find funny about this conversation is that those parents that want to take their children out of sexual education classes are the same kind of parents that don't want their children to know anything about sex.
Exactly.
And I apologize ahead of time. I'm using teenager and children interchangeably. I'm kind of meaning more teenagers than children, but for some reason I just keep calling them all children. But I am talking about those that are at least 12 years old. But the funny thing is that those who pull their children out of school are also pro-life, meaning they're against abortion. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You can't deny them an education about sex and then tell them they can't get an abortion when they mess up. If you don't want them to get an abortion, then teach them the proper ways of using a condom. You want to add anything to that, Vanessa?
Sorry, Andrew was washing dishes. but, shit. I was gonna say that I never actually thought about that. You're totally right about how they're like they're anti-sex ed, but they won't teach their kids about it, and then they're pro-life. So when their kids get pregnant, it's like, shit, what now? I mean, I'm guessing most conservative, or I wouldn't even say conservative, like religious anti-sex families. They're, I don't know, they don't really know, like, because I grew up in a a pretty sex negative household. I don't know about you, but or I think I know about you. I don't remember specifically, but my mom was always like, "Don't have sex till you're married. It's awful. You'll be really upset if you have sex before you're married, and then they leave, and you'll be devastated." And that didn't happen. I was just safe and didn't get pregnant, and here I am. But I don't know. It's weird. Very, very, very contrasting views.
Did you have sexual education in school, or did your parents pull you out of that?
I had. I remember they taught us about periods when I was in fourth grade, and they brought the boys. Actually, no, I don't think they taught the boys anything. They just let them watch Flubber. But they taught us about periods.
Should have let them watch those 50s and 60s sex ed card videos.
Oh yeah, I did. We did watch. There's this thing on like Amazon or Netflix or something that's a compilation of old sex ed videos, and it's it's great. But yeah. So I was taught about periods when I was in fourth grade, and I think they did touch a little bit on how just basically saying that sexual intercourse creates a baby, and not really going into great detail. But then in seventh grade, um, I these I told my mom about this, and she thought it was really funny and stupid. And now looking back at it, I think it's really stupid too. These high school students from the high school that I went to as well, they came down to the middle school, and I think it was like once or twice they came, but it was only once a week. But it wasn't very long, so we would go in there. I think it was boys and girls, and they would say, you know, it was really stupid. They didn't teach us about sex. They said, take these song lyrics that are very sexual and rewrite them to mean something wholesome. That's what they did. And we were sitting there like, how exactly is this teaching us like safe sex? What does this have to do with sex education? And like when you think about it, like music, when I was a kid, I didn't even listen to what the words said. I would listen to Korn and fucking Pitbull. Some of his music is crazy. It talks about like forcing himself on women and nobody even cares. And music is like anybody can listen to it. So I really didn't see the point of that exercise at all, other than making themselves feel good or doing a project or something.
It sounds like they were trying to get you into the whole abstinence thing by disassociating what sex was and turning it into something else.
No, I think it was maybe some of that, but also it was them trying to point out how sexual our lyrics were and like putting it down, and then like trying to make us create something better to make our to make us think more positively and but make sex negative. That's what it felt like to me. They were making sex negative and then saying these new lyrics will be positive. So, I mean, when it comes to music, so much of it is sexually charged, and I like it personally. I love it when I hear like silly um, rap lyrics that talk about fucking hoes and shit. I'm like, hell yeah. But I don't know. Some people just. I guess we were in kind of a small town, so I can see why some people would be against that, but it's also like not productive at all. So besides that, the only sex education I had after those weird exercises was in health class. And that was actually, legitimate sex education. And I'm pretty sure I think our middle school class touched on it a little bit, and then the high school class, they were both mandatory, but the high school class went into detail a little more. But it was all so sex negative. It was, or I don't like using that phrase, but it was so negative against sex. Um, and they were negative against marijuana too. Very, very against tobacco, which I support. But it was like, I don't know, the things that they teach in schools, as far as is my experience, is very not. It's like they're just trying to get you to not do things. Pretty much, they're just trying to scare you.
Well, for me, sex ed, the whole thing where you were learning about your periods, that happened in fifth grade for the girls, and us boys, we had a extended recess basically. So we got to go outside and play, and girls got to see blood oozing out of vaginas.
Yeah.
Although I didn't know that at the time, it took me many years later to figure out what was going on with the girls because they wouldn't tell us anything. But my actual sex education came in sixth grade. But that was really just about, how sperm is formed. And I mean, the most nudity we saw was a pair of tits, but it was animated. And it was suggested that intercourse happened, but then it talked about how sperm enters the vagina and swims to the egg, creates a baby. And then we discussed STDs and the need to wear a condom. That was it. That was our sexual education. And that's why I think that needs to be taught in schools as a mandatory subject when boys and girls hit that age of puberty.
I personally think that you can present sexual concepts in a non-sexual way even before they hit puberty so that they can be a little prepared or at least kind of know or not be embarrassed, not be worried, because I recently watched a video that said something about I think it was the Netherlands. I know quite a few people disagreed with how young they were teaching them, which was like 4 years old or something. Um, but well, they had like a set, you know, plan or whatever. Teach them simple things as they're young and then gradually teach them more. I think that's a great idea. Maybe not as young as 4 years old, but you can at least be like, yeah, boys and girls are different, because at least they can speak so they can understand. And I think I think it's all in moderation. And if kids learned to respect sex more, then they could learn, to respect each other more, I think.
Boys and girls, when you're making a sandwich, remember not to put mayonnaise on the egg. You'll get that in a few years.
What? I've never heard that.
I just made it up, so.
Oh, nice.
But then, like you, once I went into junior high and high school, I learned more about reproduction and sex, but that was part of biology. That was part of health class, and that was just requirements for taking the course. It wasn't really designed to teach us anything
Yeah.
about reproduction, but more a part of the curriculum itself. But I'll tell you, the great way to encourage abstinence is to have children watch a live birth. Ugh,
Oh yeah.
God.
Oh yeah. Definitely. You know what? I completely forgot about this, but when I was in high school, for some reason, my library, it was a pretty big library, they decided to just show this video of, I'm not really sure, I don't know what it was. I think it was like a National Geographic documentary or something like that. But I walked by like this TV that was like in the entrance to the library, and there was just a woman giving birth, like with a huge bush. bush. That's the only thing I could remember was the gigantic bush. And I was just like, okay, that's not something I wanted to see right now. But like, you know, I had already seen it from the internet and stuff like that. But that's another thing. I realized that I learned way more about sex from my friends, the internet, and TV than anything else. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because I was pretty resentful towards sex until I was 14. So I wouldn't say that was very healthy. I thought from watching a National Geographic video or Discovery Channel, that's what it was. I was watching Discovery Channel with my mom, and this monkey, this chimpanzee, just kind of sticks its ass in the air and is like, you know, waiting to get mounted. So my 7-year-old brain thought, oh, you have sex by putting it in the butt. That is what I thought. I literally thought up until a couple years later that you had sex in the butt and that made a baby. And I even told my friends about it too. They're like, no, my mom didn't do that.
Well, and that's an important thing right there, is that you might be able to get your children to not take a sex ed class, but that doesn't mean they're not going to hear it from other people what happened, and you can't control that unless you decide to homeschool them and keep them locked up. But I had a friend a few years back who was a school teacher. I think she either taught middle school or high school, but she would once in a while have to teach sex ed, and she told me like what some of these children believed, some of these teens believed about sex. And she was like, yeah, they would tell me like, you can't get pregnant if a woman is on top or if you do it in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were poing her or if they really believe that to be true.
Right. You know,
I could
that
believe
just
either
reminded
one.
me of something. I might have told you about this before, but this, honestly, in my opinion, just shows how ignorant some people can be when they're not taught, you know, the facts. And this woman, okay, so I was friends with this Marine guy when I first moved here. I didn't have any friends, so for some reason a lot of Marines really wanted to hang out with me. So I went with my Marine friend, and he said, oh, I want you to meet my best girlfriend. She's married, she has a baby on the way, she's really nice, I think you'll love her, I think you'll get along really well. And so I get there, and well, first of all, she has a weird attitude that just kind of is kind of off-putting, and almost Valley Girl, Southern Valley Girl like, and but she was like super pregnant. And you know what she tries to tell me? She says that she says matter-of-factly that the urethra is on the tip of the clitoris. That's what she told me. I said no, the urethra and the clitoris are two different things. She said no. The urethra is right on the tip. That's why some people squirt or something like that. I was like, you're pregnant with a child and you don't know how your own vagina works? How? How do you exist? I just kind of looked at her. I was like, no. Like, no, it's not. And she's like, no, trust me, it is. And I was like, okay, whatever you say. Whatever you say, pregnant lady.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the article. Vanessa, if you could go ahead and mute for a little bit. While we go ahead
We're
and
actually gonna
read this aloud.
through the article.
Alrighty. So as you can see, California school district says parents can't pull kids from new LGBT sex ed. And let me read through this whole thing and then we can go ahead and talk about it. So Orange County, California, and this was April 19th. California is about to implement a new abortion and homosexuality promoting sexual education lessons, and one school district has told parents they have no choice but to expose their children to them. California enacted the California Healthy Youth Act in 2015. But only now are its controversial provisions starting to take effect in the classrooms. Under the auspice of health, the law says that it will equip students to develop healthy attitudes on gender and sexual orientation, among other things. It also says it will inform students about the effectiveness and safety of all FDA-approved contraceptive methods and facilitate objective discussions about parenting, adoption, and abortion. So far it sounds pretty legitimate. But wait, it gets worse. Red State contributor Kira Davis, a resident of Orange County, California, warns that among the teaching materials approved for this use under this law are a study guide for the transgender children's book, I Am Jazz, as well as a sexual health toolkit. This
Did you just say
toolkit,
a book called I Am Jazz?
I Am Jazz, yeah.
They made a book now? Can I say something really quick?
Sure.
You know that child, I Am Jazz, because she went through hormone therapy or puberty blockers or whatever, her penis did not form enough to even be able to be made into an artificial vagina. So, because they blocked her hormones, because that's what is good for trans children, apparently, according to the liberals or whatever, now they can't even have a functioning penis or vagina.
Oh yeah, I think I did hear about that. That was so sad.
It's really sad. I know. It fucking sucks. But they're glorifying it. I mean, I hope they're happy, but the suicide rate is very high for trans individuals, so I really hope that they're gonna be okay, honestly. Anyways, you're saying that they're gonna use that book in schools?
Yes. Oh, it's about to get worse.
Oh dear.
All right. So this toolkit, funded in part by George Soros-connected Tides Center, offers kids tips on using sex toys and anal lubricants. Let me read that again. Offers kids tips on using sex toys and anal lubricant. It defines anal intercourse, phone sex, and more as common sexual behaviors. Go ahead.
Sorry, but anal sex is not common. I mean, it's common, but it isn't for everyone. That is so strange.
It teaches that abstinence and virginity can mean engaging in a variety of sexual activities, but stopping short of intercourse. And apparently Disney wants to make Elsa a lesbian for Frozen 2. I haven't seen the first one, so I don't know how I feel about that.
I haven't either. I don't plan to.
So what if you don't have time or money to buy sex toys? the guide asks on page C51. I don't know. How about a better question? What if you're a minor who goes into a sex store to buy a toy and they tell you, you're a minor, we can't sell you a sex toy? The answer, you can use cucumbers, carrots, and banana with the peel, which make great dildos. Just remember to use a condom.
Yes. Always use a condom. Never, ever use a carrot without a condom, because a woman died from having a carrot thread going into her bloodstream, okay? That shit is scary. Oh. Or just use a hairbrush like me. Or I did when I was young and couldn't buy dildos. But then again, someone underage bought one from Spencer's online for me. So, loophole.
Oh, sure. If you use your parents' credit card, I mean, you can buy anything online.
I don't know if it was or not, but yeah, it's funny.
Well, my takeaway from this is that you're teaching, as I mentioned, sex education, the education about how babies are formed, STDs, and using condoms. They're taking a whole new step of basically saying, hey, you can fuck yourself in the ass with the carrot.
I mean, why don't they just tell them to explore themselves? Like, it's not like, like, I learned a lot from porn. Like, I know a lot of feminists like to say, oh, guys only learn sex moves from porn, but I mean, porn is good. So, but, like, personally, I knew, like, I saw this video, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's this bald chick, that goes around drawing vaginas. It says drawing clitorises, but you can't draw a clitoris and know what it is without drawing the whole vagina. So she draws vaginas everywhere, and supposedly in the name of sex education, to make people know more about it. Well, everybody knows what a vagina looks like. Everybody knows what a penis looks like when it's drawn on a piece of paper, but unless you actually look at it in real life and study it, you're never gonna actually know what it is. So watch some porn, and then you'll maybe figure yourself out. But I commented on that video. I was like, I've known what a clitoris is since I was like 12 years old. Like, when the first time I heard clit, I was like, what the fuck? What is that? But after I knew what masturbation was, I found out what a clitoris was. And that was that. But I've known what the clitoris is for years, yet I didn't figure out how to have an orgasm until I was 21. So, not like, her point was like, oh, if more people know about the clitoris, then people will be better at sex. No. You just have to experiment and try again until you get it right. So,
Yeah, I
people are
didn't
so
know what
dumb
the
when it comes to
clitoris
sex
was
education.
until I was probably in my early 20s. And while I read a lot of books about human interactions and sex, when I first saw the word clit, I thought it was pronounced slit.
That's funny.
So when people talked about the clit, I just couldn't make the connections. Like, oh, that's what I keep reading about.
Okay. That's funny.
But again, there was no one there to really teach me about, how to have sex with a woman. And it stands to question if is something that should be taught to children. And I would say no, it shouldn't. But
Yeah, no, I
definitely
don't think
adults.
that. Yeah, I mean, personally, after, like, I say 15 or 16 years old, you should at least have some idea of your sexual wants and needs. not necessarily completely, but like your preferences. You know, I think you should know what you like, what you don't like, because if someone, you know, suddenly does something that you never even heard about, like anal, then you're like, what the fuck? You know, what the hell is this? You know, so I think people should know of it, not necessarily be taught how to do it, but they should know that this is what sex is. This is what happens. This is what might happen. And I think we should be taught more about consent and the blurred lines of consent as well, because that kind of goes hand in hand. You know, like if someone does something that you don't like, you can't just cry rape. You know, you should just talk about it and work together as sexual beings, you know, because humans are sexual beings, unless you suppress it and make it scary, you know, and it shouldn't be scary. I think it should be something that everybody can talk about and be open about in the right setting, just not necessarily, you know, in school at certain ages. So yeah, it's confusing, but I think there needs to be some kind of sex education reform or whatever.
Well, that I definitely agree with. There does need to be a sex education reform, but also a reform on what consent is, because there's still a lot of misinformation spread by feminism on what consent is, such as the fact that, well, if a woman is drunk, she can't give consent. It doesn't matter if the man was drunk or not, he was the aggressor. Even if she initiated, he's the aggressor, so it's always rape. Or how about the fact that she does say yes, and then after sex, she regrets it? It's still considered rape. Except, so you're basically saying he should have telepathically known that she didn't want sex, even though she was saying, yes, yes, fuck me now, fuck me like a dirty slut. But I'm supposed to know, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have sex with you because you're going to regret it and then accuse me of rape.
Right. And that's another thing. Like, that kind of thing, you know, like suddenly changing your mind or whatever, or regretting it later, it's like that's what led to the law that got passed in North Carolina saying that once you say yes, you can't back out. Because then, you know, it would be a legal fucking mess, you know? Like, did you hear about that? How North Carolina passed a law saying if you say yes, then that's it.
I believe I have, yeah.
Automatically.
That
Sorry.
did cause a lot of controversy because it's like, well, you're just promoting rape culture. No,
Yeah,
we're
but
promoting
that's
responsibility.
exactly like if first of all, if you say yes to having sex and then you don't say anything after that, I mean that sounds like what the thing was. That sounds like what the law was for, personally to me. But if you say no, then you don't have to have sex. You know, and if they try to do it anyways after you say no, they'll go to jail. The end.
Well, I've talked to some of my feminist friends about this, and it's like the whole saying no. It's like, well, they might be too afraid to say no, so they'll just say yes. But then they believe in things like getting affirmative consent, that you need them to actually say yes. Well, if they're too afraid to say no, then they'll also be afraid not to say yes.
Right.
So you can't
I
really
mean,
use that argument.
yeah, I used to be that way. You know, up until I was until the last time that I got sexually assaulted and they went to jail. Before that, I was terrified of saying no to people. People would take advantage of me very often, and I just wanted to hang out with friends, and then they would, you know, be sexually interested, and I'd just be like, fuck. You know, but that's because I had severe panic disorder, and I would just get so worried and afraid of disappointing people. That's like my worst fear. It's my worst phobia is disappointing people because it just makes me feel like shit. So I would just say yes or not say anything and just, do whatever. But then once I realized that that was not healthy at all and it wasn't good for my emotional well-being, I realized, okay, well, I need to fucking speak up if I don't want people to touch me. And so ever since a guy tried to come in while I was half asleep and try to touch me and poke me with a knife, he went to jail because I immediately, after I was so scared, I went down and told the people that I was hanging out with, and they were like, "Oh shit, okay, we're gonna call the police," and that was the end of it. So ever since then, I've been like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna take shit from anyone." So obviously, like, consent is very important, and but it's also it's important on both sides. Girls have to make an effort to say no if they don't want to have sex with someone. It's really simple.
And there's where the reform needs to start, is that there's a responsibility in consent. In that if you want,
men are afraid to say no to women as well. I just want to say that.
well, yeah, it's very true.
I'd say even more so. Oh, 1 sec, I gotta plug in my computer.
Well, I mean, considering that, it was like, what was it, the University of Michigan or Minnesota? They actually had it within the student charter that if you refuse to have sex with a woman, that can be classified as rape. There have been feminists who say that if a fat woman comes up to a man and wants to have sex with him and he refuses, that's fat shaming. Men are not allowed to have sexual preferences. They're not allowed to deny women without it insulting them.
Yeah, that's just hilarious to me. That just shows how self-entitled feminism is as a whole.
All right, let's go ahead and get through the rest of this article. If you could go ahead and mute, please. All right, so it teaches that one of the cons of abstaining from all sexual activity is that it requires motivation, self-control, and communication from both partners. You're presuming that the person who's abstaining from sex is in a relationship. The toolkit lists as resources Planned Parenthood and the radically pro-homosexual and pro-abortion group Advocates for Youth. The law also mandates that lessons and materials affirmatively recognize varying sexual orientations and that they be inclusive of same-sex relationships. Instructions must take a positive view of gender confusion and explore the harm of negative gender stereotypes.
Okay, I can support talking about same-sex relationships, but gender stereotypes are there for a reason. Sorry. I mean, like, you can be as androgynous as you want, but you're still either male or female.
Davis notes that the California Healthy Youth Act expressly protects parents' rights to exclude their children from participation in sex education courses without the penalty of any kind because, that was my phone, parents and guardians, bonus points if you know where that's from, parents and guardians have the ultimate responsibility of imparting values regarding human sexuality to their children. They do, but they rarely do. The Orange County School District apparently interprets this differently. In a memo dated March 29th to the Orange County Board of Education, Orange County Department of Education General Counsel Ronald Wincart says that the law's opt-out provision does not apply to instructions, materials, or programming that discusses gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, discrimination, harassment, bullying, intimidation, relationships, or family, and does not discuss human reproductive organs. So, for point of clarification, the California Healthy Youth Act allows parents to take their children out of any sex ed class that they don't want them to be a part of. But the Orange County Board says, well, okay, that's true if we discuss intercourse. But if we discuss anything else besides that, we can make it mandatory. By the way, your ass is not a sexual organ, so.
Yes, it is. Try telling that to Twitter.
Oh, Medusa, you're so mean. So Vanessa is typing in chat. I'm Batman comes in. Great to see you, Batman. He's like, hey, Batman, how's the folks doing? Oh, wait.
I'm terrible. I had to. I'm sorry. Whenever I see Batman, I have to make a dead parents joke.
I guess it's better than a dead baby joke.
Right?
All right, let's continue on. He also cites judicial precedent to claim that parents do not have the constitutional right to exclude their children from positions of the school curriculum that they find objectionable. Heidi St. John, an author and speaker who covers faith, motherhood, and homeschooling as the busy mom, forcefully spoke out Wednesday against the memo. The Orange County Department of Education feels that it is their right to give you permission to disagree with them. These are our children. They do not belong to the schools. I find that statement funny because a lot of parents have this mentality of, I send them to school to learn. I don't need to teach them myself, except when it comes to sex. Oh, I don't want my children to know anything about sex. Can't have it both ways, people. St. John advises California parents to contact their local school boards and Democratic Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, the law's author, and to pull their children out of school and force LGBT lessons on children. She also urges parents to participate in the Sex Ed Sit-Out on April 23rd, which was yesterday, an event spanning the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, in which parents pull their children out of school for the day in protest of radical sex education programs. So the rest of this just talks about that. I think I missed a part up here. Yeah, parents and guardians have the ultimate response. Okay, so my takeaway from all of this is that this is not about sex education. This is about LGBT, not propagation. God, I just had the word. Damn, it's going to bother me now. Propaganda. It's LGBT propaganda. Now, don't get me wrong. I support people being gay, lesbian. I know I've sucked a few dicks in my time. I have no problem with that. But what this is specifically doing is it's forcing children to sit in a class that talks about the different genders, sexual orientations, transgenderism. They talk about all of these things, then also talk about how you can sexually satisfy yourself, but they don't discuss anything about heterosexuality at all. If anything, they'll talk about how you might pleasure someone of the same gender than someone of the opposite gender. So basically what they're doing is saying, oh, all of these other sexual orientations are good and you should probably consider them, but by not teaching heterosexuality, it's basically implying that it's bad. And that's what I think this is. This is a big push by these groups to say, hey, it's okay to be gay and lesbian. It's not okay to be heterosexual. That's what I think this is. It's just simple I keep messing up that word. Propaganda.
I think so too. I mean, well, they're trying to make everybody non-binary aliens. Honestly, like, well, you know, the people who are trying to push stuff like this, not everyone in the LGBT community, obviously. I mean, I'm bisexual. I like dressing different ways. Doesn't mean that I have to identify it as something other than male or female. And I mean, it's just, or I know many lesbians, so-called lesbians, that suddenly got pregnant, and they're not lesbians anymore. And so it's like, sexuality is so random, and sexuality is a spectrum. Gender isn't a spectrum. Sexuality, you can like whoever the fuck you want, but it really doesn't.
Including your hairbrush.
What? Oh yeah.
Well, you can like anyone you want,
Exactly.
including your hairbrush.
Yep. Or a bubble wand. But yeah.
I agree
mean,
with you on that, but I think a lot of what drives people's sexuality is the need to want to different themselves from everyone else or try to make people uncomfortable. Like one of the relationships I had before my injury, I was kind of in a Y relationship with two women. They were together, and then I was kind of off on the side. But they would only tell people they were a lesbian. And as they explained it to me, it's like, well, it's easier to say we're a lesbian than to say we're in a poly relationship. And back then, poly really wasn't a mainstream thing. It was starting to be, but it really wasn't. But I think she did it because she felt empowered by telling men that she was a lesbian,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
even though she wasn't.
I mean, it's more powerful. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say sometimes it's more powerful than saying you have a boyfriend if their lesbian girlfriend is next to them.
So yeah, I mean, I have no problem the teaching of sexuality, but I don't think it's something that you teach at this level. And in some cases, they're talking about teaching children at a younger age. And while Vanessa said that she kind of supports this, I really don't. I support teaching respecting people, which I think is what more she was getting at. But actually teaching sex to young children is a bad thing. And I think that there is a compromise that could be had here where you can teach this but not make it mandatory by teaching it at a local community college and mandating that if you take this class, you can get college credits towards gender studies, which sooner or later they're going to make it a mandatory course anyways. And so many parents would sign up for that class if it meant that they got college credit for taking it.
That brings up an interesting thing. I did tell you that I had to take a I don't remember what they called it. It was something like something about a consent awareness or something like that. And I had to go through this thing. Um, or no, I think I think they highlighted the alcohol aspect, that like being responsible while drinking, but then they inserted stuff about sex and consent, and they even asked me what's the definition of cisgender, and gave me like multiple choice options. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen. And that was something that I had to do as part of my general ed or something like that. It was just like a little quiz or something, but it was really confusing and really like it actually did mention that men can be victims of rape too, but it was more focusing on the gay part, not that they could be assaulted by women. So it's, I don't know, it's very, very strange because and that was just in a small town community college in North Carolina. So I can't even imagine the stuff that they're teaching them at like big social justice warrior colleges, you know. And I'm glad that I don't actually go to school and I'm just doing online, and I'm really, really looking forward to the end of this semester.
Well, thankfully, I got out of the school system before the social justice warrior invasion. Although, to be fair, I went to a trade school that was accredited. So, but my class was predominantly men, anyways, and a few women that were in there, they were cool. So they understood, you know, boys will be boys. I mean, we'll talk about shit, we'll insult each other, and they'll engage with us.
Right. One thing I wanted to say about how you mentioned, you know, you don't think that sex should be taught at a young age. I think that. Sorry, I'm trying to recollect my thoughts. I think that introducing kids to sex at a very young age, it could be bad, potentially, because they might think, oh, I want to try this with my friend, you know, like playing doctor when you were a little kid, you know, if that ever happened to you. But you know, that, so it's a really complicated subject because you never know how your kid is going to react, but all you can do is try and prepare them with facts and tools and just tell them, you know, this is what's acceptable, this is what's inappropriate. And you know, I think that's all we can really do as parents. And if they, because you said that they're trying to remove the genitalia aspect of the sex education and just talk about everything else.
Yeah, it's basically what they were doing.
See, that's completely contradictory because genitals are a huge part of that. You know,
and in my case, it's definitely the huge part. You walked into that one.
I guess I did. But it's ridiculous how how they put so much focus on like, oh, we need to teach people about LGBT and different shit, but then you're not going to tell them about the basic facts of life, that this person has a penis and this person has a vagina. It's important, okay? Not everybody is attracted to penises. Not everybody is attracted to vaginas. And if someone decides to do a swap and doesn't want to tell anybody, fuck. Oh, also, I heard earlier this morning, which really tickled my pickle. Apparently now in California, the sentence for knowingly giving someone AIDS is only up to 6 months, while misgendering someone can put you in jail. Knowingly giving someone AIDS, you can be jailed up to a year. Misgendering someone, you can be jailed up. No, sorry. Fuck. Giving someone AIDS on purpose, only 6 months. Misgendering someone, a year in jail. That's what you could possibly get. So
okay, but what if I misgender someone and give them AIDS? Not that I have AIDS, lady. I'm perfectly clean. But Do I get a year and 6 months?
Quite possibly. You don't want to go down that road. Oh, hey, by the way, I have AIDS, ma'am. Excuse me? I am a sir, and you just gave me AIDS. Fuck! You're going to jail for hearing that. I don't understand that logic. Calling someone an accidental word. That's more important than giving someone a disease that could potentially kill them. Good job, California. Oh.
Yeah, there are a lot of crazy laws like that, but that kind of surprises me that California has passed a law about mislabeling someone, because that goes against the freedom of speech. I wasn't surprised that Canada did it, but I was surprised that I'm surprised that California has.
Yeah. I think it's pretty recent. I just heard about it this morning, but they also apparently went along with Canada in recognizing a third gender. So on your license or whatever the fuck. So but the guy I was watching, he was like, so what if, one day, like, what if I want to test the limits of how many times I can change my gender? What if one day I feel like a man and the next day I feel like a woman, but my identification says I'm a man, so it's oppressing me? What do I do here?
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you know how fast you're going? Excuse me, sir. I'm a man. Ma'am, did you just assume my gender? You're going to get 5 tickets for assuming a police officer's gender.
That's awesome, dude. That would be so perfect if someone in California got pulled over and they were like, hey, ma'am, do you know how fast you were going? You just assumed my gender, sir. You just assumed mine too. Buckle up, bitch.
That needs to be a skit somewhere.
I'm gonna make it. That's awesome. Oh, Andrew, we have to make a skit now. We have to make a skit. Oh, that's great.
Okay, so this is giving me some trouble here. I don't know if I'm... Oh, here we go. All right, so I want to go through this real quick. It doesn't look like we have the echoing anymore, so you don't have to mute. But just go through this real quick. So parents rally against public school sex ed over pro-choice gay rights ideas. And this was in the Washington Times yesterday. Mom, you won't believe what my teacher's talking about right now. This is a text message. Regina Young, a parent in North Carolina, Charlotte's Mecklenburg
Oh, really?
School, and she received from her 7th grade daughter one day. Before I could even respond to her text, Miss Young said, she told me how uncomfortable she was to hear her teacher tell stories of her transgender home. Yeah, that's probably a little inappropriate. Really? So, children, 3x plus y equals 10. By the way, did you know I have a transgendered home?
What does that even mean? Like she's dating a transgender person?
Or that everyone in their home is some sort of transgendered individual?
Why the fuck would that matter? Oh, hang on, I'm getting an echo now.
Miss Young was just one parent who participated Monday in the Sex Ed Sit-Out, an international demonstration to protest what rally organizers say is a campaign by pro-choice and gay rights organization to force their ideology on children through public education. Movement began amongst parents in Charlotte, North Carolina, but spread to 16 cities in 4 countries in the month leading up to the event. According to the Sit Out website, rallies were also held in Calgary, Alberta, Mulgrave, Australia, Bloomington, Indiana, and London. For the sit-out, parents were asked to pull their children out of school for the day, accompanied by a note to the principal explaining the absence as a protest against pornographic sex education.
Pornographic sex education? What, just showing diagrams of vaginas and penises?
Well, I don't know how everyone else does it, but we were talking about California teaching children how to put a carrot in a condom to fuck your own ass. I mean, that's a bit pornographic.
A little bit.
But yeah, I can kind of see that, you know, with these sort of things, that there's a lot of misinformation and over exaggeration. Generally, sex education, at least when I was growing up, was the opposite of graphic or pornographic.
Yeah.
On Monday, parents
Same here.
in the latest culture war to be fought on the grounds of America public schools, closely followed national walkouts against guns and abortion. On Monday, parents picked out two organizations for particular scorn: Planned Parenthood and the Human Rights Campaign. The nation's largest abortion provider and America's leading LGBT rights advocacy group, respectively, have written sex education curricula that public and private schools across the nation have adopted. Welcoming Schools, the pamphlet written by the Human Rights Campaign, is marketed to elementary school educators as a guide to prevent bias-based bullying. Ms. Young said forcing radical sex education on children is a form of bullying itself. I kind of have to agree with her on that one. This is not about bullying, she said. We already have a policy against bullying. What can a school teach and promote a sexual agenda to our children and violate our parental rights, giving permission to more of what's happening and what happened to my daughter? It is not acceptable. Well, she needs to learn to speak better, or this writer needs to learn to write better.
Yeah.
At the demonstration in Charlotte, Tammy Fitzgerald, wait, isn't your mom's name Tammy?
Yes.
Executive Director of NC Value Coalition, said the rhetoric about bullying is a Trojan horse to give the gay rights movement complete access to our kids in public schools. I agree with that. She and Miss Young's story is representative of what hundreds of other parents have told her. About a year ago this time, we began receiving phone calls from parents, teachers, and counselors at Charlotte Mecklenburg School. They were saying, please help us. You can't believe what they're teaching our children in public schools. Welcoming Schools includes a list of children's books that promote gay and transgendered rights. Two of the books on the list: Red, a crayon story about a blue crayon that identifies as a red crayon. Hold on, I have to stop to laugh.
Are you fucking serious? A crayon?
Oh, wait, you were serious?
How
Let me laugh harder.
pathetic.
Ha! Sorry.
Jesus, you scared the piss out of my
I scared our cat. I scared my pussy.
The mad cat scared the cat. But yeah, a blue crayon that identifies as a red crayon. I'm sorry, but even children are going to know that that's bullshit right there. I kind of want to read this book live.
Me too. Like, that doesn't even sound like a good book at all. Like, I thought of a wonderful children's book personally that I would love to make one day that is very inspirational to young artists. But that sounds like a bunch of bullshit.
And Jacob's New Dress, about a boy who wants to wear a dress to school.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Were read to kindergarten
crazy.
students in Charlotte Mecklenburg School, Miss Fitzgerald said. Protesters held up signs that said, "Let kids be kids. My child, my choice. And how dare you taking funding to destroy my child's innocence?" Well, to be fair, those two stories I wouldn't really consider destroying your children's innocence. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous with the narrative that you can pick and choose what you are as far as your gender identity, and that your biological sex has no bearing on who and what you are, even though it does. But even then, I can't really argue with reading a story to children, because we read all sorts of stories to children about imaginary friends and,
Bible
sharing is
stories.
caring, Bible stories, fairy tales. They're all fucked up in some way. So you're mad about these stories, you might as well throw out the entire curriculum.
Ah, poop. I had something to say and I forgot.
It'll come back to you. So, Carl Ayala, a former public school teacher, said about 15 people participated in the protest she organized in Austin, Texas. We are uniting with parents across the globe to demand that our right as parents be respected regarding the teaching of sexuality and sexual orientation. And that's where I have to agree with her on that one. Because you don't really need to teach about sexuality or sexual orientation in schools. I mean, you have your friends for that. They'll tell you more than the school is legally allowed to tell you. So they'll get the education, just not from the schools.
I think, yeah. Well, I totally agree. Honestly, there should be more youth groups for stuff like this. Like, there's so many Christian youth groups. There should be youth groups for sex education, like smart sex education. But also, another thing is that I really think that kids or teenagers should be taught about cross-dressing, because cross-dressing and dressing in or expressing however you want in through your clothes and your looks doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to even relate to your gender. But so many people say, "Oh, I want to dress this certain way, so that means I'm transgender." And it's really only something that has become popular in like really recent years, because there are, of course, there are real transgender people who experience gender dysphoria and need to transition to be able to live a normal life. But then there are people who simply like to dress as whatever they want, and then they say that they're a different gender, but then they never actually transition or anything. It makes no sense. Just learn about what cross-dressing is. Learn about fashion. Fashion doesn't have to be male or female. You just dress how the fuck you want. I wear male clothes too. It doesn't fucking matter.
I bought a girl's Ninja Turtle shirt because it was more badass than the dude's one.
Andrew bought a girl's shirt because of the male one.
Yeah, I heard him. Well, you know what? Girls go to school wearing like the shortest shorts they can with their vag hanging out. I think a guy should be able to do that. Wear the shortest shorts possible with his testicles sticking out.
Yep.
You know what's funny? A guy in my high school, he came to school wearing female clothes, or no, a girl brought him clothes so that he could wear female clothes, and it was just jeans and like an Aeropostale shirt, and he looked like a normal flamboyant dude, and they actually made him go and change because he made like a spectacle out of it. He was like, "Oh, look at me, I'm in girl clothes." So they were like, "Okay, you need to change because you're being ridiculous." But it's like, if you would just just wear what you want, unless you're in school, then we follow their rules. But unless you make a big deal out of it, nobody will care. Nobody. That's how I got away with wearing skirts that only went down to fucking here. Because I didn't make a big fucking deal out of it.
Okay, so where were we? So Laura Lynn Thompson attended a demonstration outside Parliament Building in Victoria, British Columbia. She estimates the attendance at 100 to 150. We have had enough, and we're not going to take it anymore. Canada is a nation that has a charter of rights, which includes freedom of religion and freedom of conscience. Yes, but that is trumped by your law that says you can't misgender someone. Our rights have been trampled by the sex ed curriculum in our school. Now we're almost done with this. Heidi Pazdek, a member of Indiana's Salt and Light chapter, Salt and Light, helped organize the rally in Bloomington and estimated that had about 40 to 50 people. She said walking into school these days is like walking into Sodom and Gomorrah. It's all about sex. Our world is all about sex. Even if you pull your child out of a sexual education classroom, the world itself is going to teach them more than they would have 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, like I learned so much, honestly. Well, also I heard a lot of misinformation from my friends. I thought that sperm was blue because that's a rumor that went around in my school until I found out that it wasn't. Honestly, just Google it.
Well, my camera doesn't want to work right now, so poo-poo on that. But so we kind of have a look at both sides on this. And I think both sides are wrong, in all honesty. But I think we do need to teach children safety in this world today, especially with how more sexualized our culture has become. And while I'm not entirely against that notion of it becoming more sexualized, at the same time, there is a level of protection that we need to provide to our children about that. At the same time, though, we do need to teach them basic health, their own basic health.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like anyone's going to pull a child out of the classroom for not washing their feet. It's like, well, I don't want my child to learn how to wash their feet. It goes against our religion.
Well, that's another thing. We need to teach kids more about sexual hygiene in general because, I mean, there's so many people who don't even know what it's like, circumcised versus uncircumcised, especially women. They have no fucking idea. And then also another thing is that if you suppress all these sexual things, if you don't tell them anything until they're older, then they might suddenly really, really, really want sex. And then, which is what happened to me. And I think happened to many people I know as well, because I was told, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. And then once I had sex, I was like, oh shit, sex is awesome. Let's have sex. So, which thanks responsible enough to not get pregnant or have a disease or anything, which I think is something that everybody should know. But it's like, I feel like we just need to find a middle ground that shows people how to be clean, safe, and not creepy.
There's a comment in our chat about blue sperm that it would change the context of Eiffel 65's hit song Blue. Well, yeah. I guess it would be a song about bukkake.
Ooh, giggity.
I do think that, more things need to be taught in school. I'm not against consent being taught in schools, although I think that that's more of a junior high school thing, as long as it's properly taught and it's not mandated by politics. We should teach actual health and hygiene, teach that, condoms are necessary, and teach like all the ways in which someone can get pregnant. I mean, a lot of people believe blue cocky. A lot of people believe that if you pull out, you can't get a girl pregnant. They believe that penetration is a requirement for impregnating a girl. And while it is extremely difficult to get someone pregnant, even if you pull out, because you could still pre-cum, although pre-cum generally doesn't have sperm in it, it sometimes does. And women have gotten pregnant because of it. Women have gotten pregnant.
Yeah, and different women have different amounts of
tolerance.
Susceptibility, yeah, to sperm. I've never been pregnant, and I've had so many close. Might be another chick. Actually, I know a chick who was on birth control and used a condom and still got pregnant. So it really depends. And you have to know your body, and you have to know your partner's body to be able to actually have safe sex.
Well, there's a girl that I went out with a few months ago, and she was telling me that when she gave birth to her son, she was a virgin. And how this happened is because when she was at a party, her graduation party, she kind of hooked up with the guy, but she didn't want actual sex, but she still wanted to get off. So it was kind of a mutual masturbation sort of thing. And he did ejaculate and it landed on her vagina, but his penis never went into her and she still got pregnant.
That's fucking awful.
Yeah.
That's almost hard to believe, but that's awful.
It's hard to believe, but it does happen. And this is the kind of things that need to be told to teenagers who are going to be fucking, because they're going to be given a lot of misinformation out there. And we need to say, hey, you know, it's still possible to get pregnant in all of these ways. Dispel all of the myths. Because you're not going to stop teenagers from having sex. But maybe if we actually teach them, we can reduce the rate of abortion. You know, maybe during a sex ed class, we show them a live birth and we show them a live abortion. I actually just saw a video last week that it was an animation of an abortion, but I'm like, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that just kind of scared the crap out of me. I'm like, wow, that is really horrific.
Right. I mean, I feel like that would really make men and women think, okay, I better be fucking like really safe, or else I'm gonna have to, first of all, pay out the ass for it, and then this is gonna, you know, she's gonna have to go through this scary shit, you know, like just get birth control, get an IUD like I did, and you know it's over with. Like fucking, you have health insurance until you're fucking 21, so get that shit and just, you know, be good, because I have tried so many different birth control options, and I all the way advocate for the IUD, even though sometimes for some women it's not compatible with some women because it could potentially like go up into your uterus or whatever. But for the women it does work with, like me, is a fucking lifesaver. You know, no periods, and I don't have to worry about babies. So get on birth control. Oh.
Well, and I find it auspicious that it's Planned Parenthood that's leading the sexual education, because I just watched an interview on Steven Crowder of a woman who used to be like a manager at a Planned Parenthood facility, and she was saying that Planned Parenthood is centered around women getting abortion, and that they will purposely set women up to get pregnant. They're like, well, here's some free birth control that you have to take every single day. People are going to forget to take their birth control. And that's how women get pregnant. And then they charge up the wazoo for abortion. Even though they get government funding, they still charge a lot of money for it.
That's so fucked up, dude. That's one thing that I absolutely do not support. I don't think that they should be government funded at all if they're literally making money off of women that think, you know, they're doing the right thing or whatever, or the liberating thing, and then, you know, they're just spending a shit ton of money. I personally know people who have spent a ton of money on abortions, or had their boy, or had the men spend money on abortions, and it's ridiculous. I mean, especially if you don't have it before a certain date. Like, if you know, you can have the pill, which is the least invasive, I guess, but then after a certain amount of time, they have to go up in there and cut the baby apart.
Yeah.
So, I
And
mean,
that's
why would you even want to get to that point?
well, because they use a lot of misinformation, and then they accuse the
Yeah.
other side of doing exactly that. And I agree, both sides use a lot of misinformation, but you know, this is actually something that the left would be against, is showing an actual abortion happening, because they don't want people to know what's going on. And
Right.
so I don't really talk about abortion too much, because one, it's not a man's decision. And two, my view on it is a little bit controversial, but I'm going to lay it out right now. I am against abortion, but I think it's necessary at the same time. And what I mean by this is, I would love to see abortions go away altogether. Unfortunately, we still live in a day and age where parents push this concept of abstinence on their children, try to scare them out of not having sex, that there's so much misinformation about what sex is, that these teenagers end up getting pregnant and practically are destroying their lives, and that abortion is really the only option for them. Yes, I know you can do it for give up for adoption, but realistically, all that does is ensure that a child is going to grow up to be a criminal and kill a lot of, or not kill, but you know, more likely to become a criminal. So it's basically a
Well, there's
slow
also
death.
another thing. Yeah, it's also another thing to consider, that most of the people who, well, I guess it goes for both sides. Most of the people, like, there are people who simply can't afford abortions, and then they have the child, and then the child has a fucking horrible life.
Yes.
And then on the other side, there's the ones that, like, sorry, I'm trying to word correctly so that I don't misstep on myself. But it's also a lot of the low income people who do get abortions. So it's like, it's strange, you know, like some people, I think it depends on how you were raised, honestly, because there are people who are like, oh, I can't afford birth control, or I don't want to have birth control, so I'm just gonna have a bunch of kids, and then all their lives are horrible. And then there's the people that are like, oh, I can't afford to have a baby, so I'm just gonna have a bunch of abortions. Neither are really that great. So it's, I mean, personally, I don't know any rich women, or like well-off women, who have abortions on a regular basis, because they usually try to prevent it. In my opinion, I feel like it's the lower intelligence that really needs, unless it's an accident, of course, you know, unless it's an accident. See, this is why it's such a touchy subject, because like, if you literally try everything, like if I were to get pregnant right now, even though I have a 99.999% effective birth control, I would probably have to get an abortion, or, well, no, it wouldn't actually form because I have birth control, so it would probably be a miscarriage. But still, even if I actually did get pregnant at this age, I'd be like, yeah, I can't have a baby. I personally never want to have a baby. I want someone else to have a baby for me. So it's really dependent on like each individual and each situation, and I think it is best to just avoid it at all costs, in my opinion.
Congratulations, Andrew. She's always going to have a tight vagina.
Exactly. I'm scared of being pregnant. I do not want to be pregnant.
Yeah, I don't want to be
I don't even
pregnant
know if I
either.
can get pregnant. What did you say?
I said I don't want to be pregnant either.
Right. Oh,
And,
so
you know, I think there is a correlation there, and I would be interested to see if anyone's done it. But it seems like a lot of people who are pro-life seem to be lower income or devoutly religious. And I know that's not 100% true, but it does seem that's the case. And that the people who do seem to need the abortion tend to be lower class. I mean, you got to remember, what was it? Salinger? I forget her first name, but Salinger was the one who created Planned Parenthood with the express intent of having it available to black women as a form of population control. She didn't want black people breeding. So I think her name was Mary Salinger. So she created Planned Parenthood as a way to give them an option to abort. People forget that, but it's an unfortunate thing that we need abortion, and I would love to see it go away. But unfortunately, taking away abortion doesn't solve any problems. In fact, it probably makes a lot of
right.
things worse. So, what we need to do first is solve the problem of why so many women need an abortion in the first place. And once we can solve that problem, then we can get rid of the option for abortion altogether, except in, you know, medical necessary circumstances.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think personally, you know, as someone who just thinks like in common sense, and I'm a realistic person, you know, I think I need to be on birth control or I could get pregnant, you know, and for some reason not every woman understands this, or they just don't care, and then it just causes people pain. I don't know. Like it's just it's there's no reason to do something that is preventable. And even if and then if you try to prevent it and it still happens, you know, oh well, there's your option. But at least try to prevent it. You know, at least, because it's so much less expensive than an abortion, or than to have a baby, unless you actually want that baby, then have the baby.
Well, and that's the other thing I want to point out too, because a lot of people's opinion on all of this is, well, if you get pregnant and you don't want the baby, then give it up for adoption. And we already discussed what happens to a child for adoption, but it's also expensive to be pregnant. You know, you've got to
Oh yeah.
go to doctor's offices, you got to get prenatal vitamins, you've got to change your entire life for this pregnancy. So it's not as viable
Not
as an
everybody does that
option.
either.
It's not as viable as an option to just bring the baby to term and then give it up for adoption. They think it's just like that. No, it's not. It's a very big responsibility.
Right. Yeah, I mean, personally, if like I said, if I ever got pregnant, I couldn't carry it to term because I just personally feel like the toll on my body would be so emotionally, you know, impactful. I guess I wouldn't say traumatizing, but it would be so, you know, it'd be a big impact on my life, and I don't think that I would be able to recover for a long, long time, especially if I mean, I already feel like personally, I feel self-conscious about my stretch marks on my legs just from being tall. So like if I become pregnant and suddenly I got, you know, all of these stretch marks all over my boobs and my stomach, which, you know, kudos to the women that have had children, like including my mom, and still feel confident about themselves. You should feel confident about yourself. But I personally know that I would not be able to handle it. And therefore, I do not want to have a baby out of this body. And that's the thing for me to know. You know, it's a good thing to be able to realize, like, I don't think I'll be able to have children, or I do want to have children. You know, it's really, it's something you have to, it's a state of mind you have to get into, and, like, you know, go towards that. Because, like, if you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll have a baby, maybe I won't, and, you know, it's, you got to make smart decisions, you know, to have a successful life. And, you know, not everyone does that, but
No, I think you really hit the nail on the head right there, is that you've got to, you know, really make smart decisions to have a successful life. And pregnancy is one of those decisions that you have to make. And yes, a lot of people end up getting pregnant, not when they need to, and they still go on to lead a happy, healthy life, something that they can be proud of, even though the miracle of birth was an accident. But that's not something that everyone can handle. Kudos for those people that can take a unfortunate situation and turn it into something positive. Not everyone can do that. And we see that a lot, where so many mothers end up having children that they're not ready for and end up doing a lot more damage than had they just gotten an abortion. And I hate to say that it's probably better that these women had gotten an abortion, but it is a truth. You know, what's the outcome for that child? Yes, some of them can make it and become happy, successful people, but more than likely, those who are born to a single mother home, which has been demonstrated, or grow up in the foster system, are more likely to do very bad in life, if not become criminals. So, I mean, we want to get rid of abortion. Great. That is a great goal to have. It starts with sex education. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to change in our world in order for abortion to be thrown out of the conversation, to just be like, no, we don't need it anymore. But the first step, I think, is reforming sex education and really teaching people about, you know, condoms and STDs and pregnancy and all the ways that you can get pregnant and what actually happens as a result of that. But we're not going to get that by trying to teach little teenage boys to stick a carrot in a condom and fuck yourself. That has nothing to do with protecting yourself. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, how you yourself, you know, you were denied the knowledge of sex until you're basically an adult, and then you just really wanted it so much you became a nympho. Not a bad thing, but I'm thinking that that's the same thing that's going to happen here, that we have all of these advocacy groups coming in and saying, hey, give gay sex a chance, don't do straight sex. And they're basically creating the same problem. So they're going to convince a lot of teenagers that heterosexuality is a bad thing. That's already happening, but this is the next nail in that coffin. And when they finally come out of that phase where they're like, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm actually straight, maybe I do like the opposite gender, they're not going to have any knowledge of that. And you've created the same exact problem. I mean, if you want to teach homosexuality, if you want to teach about lesbianism, if you want to show lesbian porn, I'm all for that. But at the same time, you need to teach about heterosexuality and not treat it as the dirty secret or the ugly stepsister. You need to teach it on the same level that you teach every other thing. Because you know what? You wouldn't be here if your parents didn't decide to have straight sex at least once in their life.
Oh,
Wow, I didn't even realize you could see through your shirt there.
You're lucky I put a bra on.
or else this video would be taken down. Although I don't feel lucky, but you know.
No, yeah, it would definitely be demonetized if not taken down.
Well, I don't care about monetization anymore. But you know, it's funny that the video of mine that got taken down a year ago, and that was the reason. One of the reasons why we stopped the BDSM show is because my Andy Worski video got taken down. But a year to the day that it got taken down, it got put back up on my channel.
Yeah. I told you they tried taking my tits versus ass video down, right? Or they did?
No, I didn't hear about that. Or if you did, I forgot.
Well, I posted it on Twitter. They sent, or no, I logged in to YouTube, and the first thing that popped up, I couldn't do anything until I acknowledged my strike for a video that I uploaded over 2 years ago. So now I suddenly have a strike, and it got taken down for no. They wouldn't give a reason. I just said, I don't, there was minimal swearing, and I can change the title if that's what you want, because tits versus ass isn't really, a PC title, I guess. But I said I could change it, but I don't see any problem with talking about women in video games. It's just a conversation, but who knows? I don't know if someone flagged it or if they just randomly did it. I have no idea, but it was stupid.
Well, I'm still amazed that my video about National Organization of Women talking about toxic whiteness is still on my channel. I'm surprised the National Organization of Women haven't taken that down, and it's had over 1,000 views. But that actually happened to me a few months ago. I logged into Facebook one day, and it's like, this post that you made like 2 years ago, we're taking it down because it's offensive. And what it was me liking a video on YouTube, which posted on Twitter, which automatically updated to Facebook. And it was Milo Yiannopoulos gets attacked at DePaul University by Black Lives Matter.
Are you serious?
That is what they found offensive. They said that it was racist.
It's racist for it's racist for a black person to come up and smack a fucking gay white dude. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but even then, it's like it was a like saying, I liked video, blah, 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 blah.
Dude, that is fucking ridiculous. What the fuck is wrong with Facebook? I'm so surprised that I've never, ever gotten any kind of ban on Facebook, ever.
I've gotten one. I've gotten one.
The only thing I've ever gotten was, I don't know if you saw, but on the Facebook page, Modern Medusa, apparently because I said, or I shared an article about how Backpage was taken down. I was like, this is all because not as much child sex trafficking will go on. And apparently, I think it was just one girl who saw it, and they said, oh, they're against sex workers, and they're fucking horrible people. So they went and told all their friends to come and rate my page 1 star. That's their game plan, to give me 1 star. And then when I asked them why they were doing it, they were like, I don't know, someone just told me to give you 1 star, so I did. I was like, what the fuck? So I just disabled ratings on the page because I don't need ratings for a fan page. And the person that I asked, like, what are you doing here? And she was like, well, maybe you shouldn't have your personal opinions on your business page. And I was like, bitch, this isn't my business page. This is my personal fan page. Do you even know where you are? It was so stupid. Oh, but yeah, I completely removed ratings because of that stupid shit.
By the way, guys out there that are fans of Modern Medusa, I'm an admin on her page, so I see all of those emails.
True. Oh.
But, the one time it happened to me, I got a 24-hour suspension. Lauren Southern was talking about her suspension because she used the word faggots. And she was saying how, faggots in Britain actually refers to a type of food. So I reposted to her. It's like, oh, would you like to check out my recipe for faggot stew? So that was like my 24-hour ban that I did. But
That's what made. Oh my god!
It was funny. Like a year later, I used the word faggot again on Facebook, and I never got blocked. I
don't understand what it is. I don't know if it's someone. I don't know if it's someone reporting it, because when I report stuff, nothing happens to them. Like, I literally had some dude like last week posting pictures of me when I was underage on his personal profile, and I reported it, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can either block him or ask him politely to take it down. We're not gonna fucking do anything about it." But they'll give you a 24-hour ban for saying faggot. What?
Well, it's like what happened during the election. Like, they would take down any page that was critical of Hillary Clinton, even if it was just a straight opinion page, or even if it used actual facts. But then people kept reporting, hey, this website goes against the terms of condition, like, kill Donald Trump now. This was a Facebook group, and Facebook said, this does not go against our terms of service. But if you'd switched that and said, kill Hillary Clinton now, that would have been a violation. So they pick and choose what it is. And it surprises me that Facebook did not go after someone posting underage pictures of you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, disturbing right there.
I mean, I honestly am almost considering going to, like, well, someone told me to just go to the FBI. Because, like, if he's posting pictures of me and other underage girls on his personal profile, on his public profile on Facebook, who the fuck knows what's on his actual computer?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I reported into the local police, but I don't think they're going to do anything. And Facebook didn't want to do anything. So apparently they're okay with, like, creepy pedophiles or whatever the fuck. But, conservatives were no.
Well, the left is now starting to consider pedophilia perfectly legal, reasonable.
Right. Yeah, good job. Oh. It's ridiculous.
It is indeed. But, I thank you for coming on video with me today, because I've really missed this. And, I know you were feeling a bit blue today, so I'm glad I coerced you into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like talking about,
sex,
stuff like this. So yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, well, hopefully, I was thinking about maybe doing a stream on my channel tomorrow if I finish all my homework. But yeah, hopefully we'll be doing more of these soon. I feel like YouTube is like dying personally for small YouTubers, but
you know what? YouTube can suck my balls. Oh wait, that only works if you can see me grabbing my balls.
Well, it can suck my clit that it doesn't know about.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. Sucking my dick is like a bad thing.
Hey, maybe not for everyone. You find some faggots out there. Sorry, I need to censor myself, or else the YouTube people will come and attack me.
No, you're popular enough of a channel that they won't do anything to you. They'll just come after me because I'm not. I mean,
I'm probably gonna. Well, I'll try to mirror this video after we're finished. But yeah,
is it bad now that I know that your shirt is see-through? I keep looking at your chest. Hey, I shouldn't admit that out loud.
I mean, was gonna put duct tape underneath, but that would have looked ridiculous. That would have been way more obvious.
No, I appreciate if you can share this video, and I do plan on doing a lot more videos in the months to come. However, I won't really be able to do the video editing stuff until after, pretty much in June, because that's when I'm going to be getting all of my stuff from Philadelphia, which includes a webcam that I got and a microphone that a fan donated to me. So then I'm going to really elevate things thanks to the laptop that I just received. So I'm no longer asking people to buy me a computer, although I do still need health insurance. So
yeah, I wish. Well, I mean, you need health insurance. I don't really need health insurance, but yeah.
Oh, what's that supposed to mean? And thank you.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good cause for you to have health insurance. Me, it's like all I really need is, back massages.
Hey, you got the health that you need. You get an IUD. You there? Well, it looks like she froze on us. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. We've been doing this for about 2 hours now. Woo! I miss doing this, so hopefully we get to do this very soon. I don't know what our timetable is. This was kind of like an impromptu thing because I saw this article last week, and I'm like, oh, I've got to do a show on it. I'm like, I should have Vanessa on. So anyways, definitely check out the links down below. I am still doing Patreon. I calculated that I need about $200 a month to get health insurance, which can help me with my disability as well as a few other things going on in my life. I am trying to work, and now that I have a laptop and I'm going to be getting my camera stuff soon, I plan on trying to make a business out of teaching courses online. So hopefully I can solve my own problem. But until that time, I do need the extra help. Of course, if you don't want to do Patreon, I do have my PayPal down below that. And I also have my book that I'm trying to get popular, and then Amazon be forced to take it down. So far, it's more popular than its predecessor of Destroy a Man Now. My book is How to Destroy a Woman Now. My voice is starting to go. So if you buy that book and give it a 5-star rating, then it gets popular, and then people will want to take it off Amazon and hopefully take the other book off of Amazon, which actually does contain illegal information. My book doesn't. Have you come back, Vanessa? Yeah, I have come back. And oh, Mad Cat, you're such a sexy, sexy man. Oh, wait, everyone can see that little thing around my icon going, so I guess I can't fool you. What else? So we are still doing the calendars. We still have quite a few of them going on. We are going to be making some major announcements in June. So stay tuned for that. But you can still go to our Indiegogo campaign and make an order from there, or go to our PayPal, which I believe is paypal.me/support these ladies. And you can go ahead and still get a calendar, a photo book, and a wall calendar. We're all out of the Mercedes posters for anyone who's interested. Vanessa, you back with us?
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck just happened. My fucking phone just was like, oh, the temperature is too high, and then just stopped working for some reason. I don't know what the fuck happened, but apparently I'm 2 people right now.
That's okay. I started speaking.
Because my phone's in it.
I started speaking for you.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It happens. But I was just doing my shilling, which I'm basically done. Do you want to shill anything?
Sorry, what? The fucking thing is being slow as shit right now.
That's okay. I'll talk for you. I'm Modern Medusa, and I want you to buy my artwork. I am a fantastic artist, and
Oh, if you want
so
me to
many
show,
people use what?
I said if you want me to show, that's easy. I just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I'm shilling right now. So, do you want to shill anything?
Well, yeah, fucking the lovely ladies calendar. You better buy that shit because we still have a shit ton of them. But yeah, the best way to support me is either by becoming a patron or buying my art on facebook.com/Vanessa's Custom Art. Or well, you have to pay me through PayPal, but that's where you can see all my art. And you can also check out my Twitter and all my other. Well, if you just go to my Twitter, look at the pinned tweet, and you will find every single place to follow me, like Discord, Snapchat, Instagram, fucking Minds, all that good shit. So, yeah. Pretty easy.
Yeah, of course, I already mentioned the calendar, but it sounds better when she talks about it.
Buy boobs!
You do see more of her boobs in it. Not completely, because we did have to make it safe for work. Almost. But yeah, like I said, we've got some major announcements coming in June. Can't reveal them yet, but it is related to the calendar, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's going to do it for us today. Like I said, we don't know when we'll be doing another one of these, but certainly as we get, well, probably once Vanessa is done with her semester of school, we'll probably be doing a lot more of these videos more often.
Yeah.
So blame Vanessa.
Yeah. Oh, blame the goddamn academia.
I always do. All right. So thank you everyone who's watched. I'm sure none of you are listening by this point because people only watch things for like 20 minutes and then stop. So I can say whatever I want. I hate all of you.
Fuck you guys.
Fuck you. All right. This is Dix.
Oh yeah, and I'm boobs.
And believe me, I'm a big dick.
I'm a big fat boob. One boob.
No, I think I'm the boob in this.